and transition to being basically a global stooge for the World Economic Forum or Davos or whoever. This is not the rule of law anymore. This is, we're going to take you out. And the message being sent wasn't just simply to Trump. It's a message because we do not want you or anyone else politically to thwart our plans to transition to this global government. And obviously Trump, like him, would stand in the way of that. And the latest polls show head to head that he wins over Biden in 2024. They're very much afraid of him getting back in. And that's why they haven't changed the Dominion voting system. We know it's been hacked. We know about the ballot harvesting. We now know that. And so they're going to do everything they can to retain their power because they've got to get their agenda accomplished. So to me, Tom, this is a turning point for America. And I honestly don't know. I'm sitting back here wondering if we ever come back from this. So it's unprecedented.
It's really, this is really bad. And how do you come back from it? Because a precedent has now been set. So it was Eric Holder who accused Trump of, if he gets into power, he's going to arrest his political opponents, which he never did. But, you know, there's so many different things we can talk about that have transpired in the last 2 years. I got to be careful because of censorship. But I do want to say this, everyone. Listen, if we get censored, go download the app. Hey, Matthew, are we on live?
Yep.
Other places. So yes, download the app. Go to Hope for Our Times. We'll still be there because we don't know what YouTube and Facebook are going to do. Because I mean, listen, they're willing to arrest Trump. What on earth makes anybody think that they're not going to come after you? Listen to this. You got to hear this, Brandon. I'm sure you already saw it. Pelosi on FBI's raid. No person is above the law. I'm thinking, okay, so Pelosi, the inside trader, the Clintons, the Clinton body bag count. Am I going to get censored for saying these things? Biden, Hunter Biden, the Epstein, everybody in Epstein's black book, the judge that ordered the raid on Trump's property. Guess what? He's tied in with Epstein. What a quinky dink.
Oh, yeah. They're all connected some way or somehow. But you're talking about a two-tiered system of justice now we have going on, and that's a legitimate thing. People like the Clintons never get charged. I mean, Hillary deleted and acid washed 33,000 emails, had confidential information in her home, and she wasn't raided. Nothing happened to her. And so we're now realizing the justice system is not equal anymore in America. And because of that, that should be frightening to everybody, because if you're not on the right side, they're going to, what they did to Trump, they will do to you. I mean, think about this, Tom. They have just issued a new spending spree allowing the IRS to be weaponized with what I think something like 87,000 new IRS agents that are now going to do more audits on people making under $200,000. That's the middle class.
Yeah.
They're weaponizing these political institutions, and they're using it against people like us. That's where it's going.
That's it.
So it's a very scary time now.
It really is. I saw a Babylon Bee post from earlier today about the 87,000 agents. It said, hey, this is wonderful. Now every home in America will have an IRS agent living there.
That's right. That's
you know, I mean, you look at it, you compare this, okay, you look at the national, IRS agents that are already there.
Yeah.
Now we have an 87,000 more. I think it was Glenn Beck who said, now the IRS agents there's almost as many agents as there are National Guard troops.
Wow, that's amazing.
Should put things into perspective of what is really going on. When you think about weaponizing the IRS for this purpose, weaponizing the DOJ, the FBI, all of these things, this is really bad. Okay, I want to get to some other things too, because I'm going to have you help connect the dots all the way around, because there's so much to talk about in our short time. By the way, everybody, a reminder, Brandon will be speaking this weekend at the conference Friday and Saturday, along with Billy, who you all saw yesterday, and we're all going to be uncensored, which is going to be terrific, because right now we really need that.
That's
because
right.
they're trying to. It's unbelievable the things that we're going to be able to talk about. Can't talk about them anywhere else, and it will not be on YouTube. People are asking me, will it be later on YouTube? It's not. We're gonna have it on our own server, and that's where we're keeping it. And for safekeeping, as Brandon knows, if you got something, you're gonna have to keep it. They'll take away all these things. Okay, I'm gonna ask you about Yuval Noah Harari. I've listened to you a couple of different times. The information you have on him is phenomenal. I know you're going to be talking about some of that this coming weekend.
Yes.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But I want to go there in just a minute because it all ties into World Economic Forum, takedown of America, all these different things. You did a message Sunday night. I think it was Sunday night, Daniel chapter 7.
Yeah, Daniel 7, yes.
Daniel chapter 7. You got a warning from YouTube or whoever it was that gave you a warning. So I don't know if it's going to happen here, but I'd like to ask you a little bit about it. Some of the things you said, I'm thinking, now they're going after this, but the problem is that you connected, and this is before the raid last night. Yeah. So this is 24 hours before the raid. You were connecting all these dots based on what Daniel chapter 7 says. So walk us through a little bit of it, from the Green New Deal to the World Economic Forum to this monster that's being built, and what the Bible says. And try not to get me censored.
I will. But if you start with Yuval Harari, which I will do a whole presentation on this guy, he is the lead advisor to Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. Now, they call him the prophet. And on my last prophecy update, I called him the oracle for the beast, because Yuval Harari is explaining, he's not hiding anything, exactly what the globalists want to do and are going to do. And the scary part of it is the strategy is to use what I call the green dragon. And what I mean by that is they're going to use the hoax of global warming and try to implement a complete reduction of fossil fuels, a complete transition to renewable energy. Now, the thing about it, which I'll explain at the conference, this has devastating effects to any country's economy. And we have seen the effects of it in Ghana, Sri Lanka. It's happening in the Netherlands now, where they will not let them use synthetic fertilizer, nor will they let them use pesticides, which every country that is following the World Economic recommendations, it's destroying their economy. But we know why. It's destroying their economy to get us to go to a digital economy. That's the whole goal. So you have to tear down first, and then the concept of build back better comes from that, and which was Biden's campaign, but it's actually coming from the World Economic Forum and the UN. Anyway, the idea then is to control people through food, energy, and scare tactics, like, viruses and stuff like that. The main issue is they realize that you can control people if you control their food, which they're doing through the farming. And they're reducing farming, saying you have to have green farming now, and your tractors and equipment have to be electrical rather than gas or diesel. That's devastating to the United States. It will kill us if they do that. And they're already starting. The second thing is then you have to kill the economy for people to beg for a digital currency, which the Biden administration is doing right now, in every aspect, whether it's inflation, interest rates, housing, you name it. Every sector of our economy is being crushed by their agenda. Now, if people want to know where this goes, let me tell you an interesting thing I'll share when I'm with you guys. The higher the ESG score for a country, the worse the people suffer. So like Sri Lanka, that went on its head, had an ESG score of like 98, like almost perfect, but it went on its head and collapsed. The United States right now has an ESG score of 58. So imagine the pain we're feeling now at a score of 58 when Biden wants to put that thing close to 100. We will have starvation. We will have food shortages. We will have everything that Sri Lanka had and others. And so the connection with Yuval Harari all the way down to you and I is they're using this technique through fear that we're going to die in 12 years of a planet that's going to get overly hot. to get compliance through every country and eventually down to the wire to you and I, how we run our air, how much food we eat. They want to get us off of meat. They will control every aspect of our lives. That's how the connections are happening.
I look at this, I've been reading about the ESGs, environmental, social, and governance scores. So all these massive corporations are in on it, and they're driving it. So the problem is, even if you have a small corporation, even a mom and pop company, they're going to have to comply to be able to borrow money, just be able to operate within a business model. They're going to have to fall into compliance. All the banks, the big banks, they're already there.
Well, yeah, there are, and something happened where they're all in collusion with each other, the big corporations and the banks. And banks have basically said, we will not loan you money if you're not ESG compliant. And if your score is not high enough, you're not credit worthy. And think this is another thing on a national level, on a geopolitical level, what's happening. Okay, so like a country like Ghana, which I'll talk about this weekend, Ghana was energy independent, functioning great, doing wonderful in their economy. And then they made a mistake of following Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. And what did they want them to do? Get off of fossil fuels, get them on renewable energy like solar and wind. And what happened to Ghana? They went in the tank. Blackouts, starvations, all kinds of bad stuff started happening in Ghana because of following this green deal or the green dragon. Okay, but here's the key. Why was Ghana willing to go and follow the prescription of the World Economic Forum? It's because of this. Investors, if they wanted investors in their country and businesses to invest in Ghana, they had to be ESG compliant. That's the main reason why they switched, because they needed the investing money to do this. And that's what every country is going through. I'll show a video of Macron desperately hanging on to Joe Biden at the G7 summit, and he's panicked because of his energy problems. And they caught him off camera, and basically what he was saying is, look, Joe, I've talked to Saudi, I've talked to United Arab Emirates, we need more production. And what's happening here is Macron and every one of these countries are bowing a knee to the green dragon to be ESG compliant, but at the same time, they know they're in an energy crisis because they have no oil or gas. So he's telling Biden, we need to increase oil production. And it was totally caught on camera. And Blinken finally says, we got to go inside. Let's not talk about this. But it shows you the world leaders now are so afraid of this ESG thing and the World Economic Forum that they're willing to put their countries at energy risk and collapse because of it. Wow. It's very scary.
That is. So, Brandon, my mind goes to Romans chapter 1, where they'll worship the creation rather than the creator, and God gives them over to debased mind. It looks to me like we are watching this play out, because really, with the ESGs, the green dragon, as you so well define it, this is a worship of creation. At least it's lifted up to the point where you do anything against Mother Earth now. I mean, you can see, we saw what happened over the last 2.5 years. People were telling on other people if you weren't wearing a mask or whatever. Imagine what it's going to be like if you go out. I mean, the reality of it is you go out for a steak, the day is coming, and I don't think it's that far in the future, because they're going to drive, I believe they're going to drive this as fast as they can. Their goal is 2030. They've made incredible progress. They're not going to let up on the gas pedal. They arrest Donald Trump. So as they push forward, you live out there in farmland.
Yes.
And I mean, that's a big steak place out there. And I'm looking at going, I'm thinking, I know they want to get rid of the cows. I know they want to get rid of the farms. I imagine the farmers are being just decimated or threatened with water shut off and everything.
Well, they're having the water shut off, and then now they're going to tell them that they can't use synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. Well, I can tell you this. If they do that, the farming in California will dry up. There will be nothing they can produce. Even when you buy organic food, it still has pesticides on it. You cannot grow major crops without pesticides and fertilizers. It just is what it is. They just use less for organic. And so, but the whole thing in California is they're going to kill the breadbasket of the entire world here. But why? They want control of the food. And so because of that, and because of them wanting us off fossil fuels because of control, we're going to have major problems. I mean, they're already saying about the gas, we don't need to get lower prices. We need to have higher prices to get people off of it and onto electric cars. And Pete Buttigieg, Department of Transportation, said, we're going to have to fill that pain so that people go to electric cars. And it's like, this is intentional. This is not an accident. This is all intentional to get us dependent on the world government eventually that will control everything. So we're watching this unfold and nothing's stopping it, Tom. That's the thing. Where are our riots, so to speak? I'm not advocating riots, but where are people pushing back? Nowhere. Nowhere is pushing back. Now think about it. Trump gets raided last night and only a few Republicans say anything. The rest of them are totally silent, which that's insane. What is it? They're all on the same team, basically. You know, you'll have about maybe 20 guys that are legit, and the rest of them are all playing on the other side. So they're all in line with this. We have a uniparty. If we have a uniparty, and if we're going to be controlled by global elites, then what do the elections matter anymore if they're going to use Dominion and still use an algorithm to make sure Biden never loses or anyone else? So we're at a crossing point where we cross this line now and go into the green dragon like we are. We don't come back. I don't see us coming back. If they're willing to do this to Trump, they're willing to do this to any political opponent. And eventually it comes down to you and I in the church. We become the targets as well. So I don't know. Not good times.
Yeah, we will. You know, they've effectively have shut down half the churches over the last 2.5 years. But really, I mean, I look at the churches that have closed, they were compromising beforehand anyways.
Sure.
But it's gotten narrower and narrower, so we can see what's left. But you go back to the days of Nazi Germany, you have to shut down the voice of the church, the ones who actually believe in the Bible, because the problem with this is it confronts everything we're talking about.
That's right, everything.
It confronts this global beast system, and it is a beast system. Yeah. Going back to Yuval Noah Harari, the things he has said, he's exceptionally blasphemous.
Absolutely.
Anybody who doesn't go along with his plan of being augmented with artificial intelligence becomes a useless person.
That's right.
I look at it from these guys, the Kissingers, the Klaus Schwabs, the Yuval Harari. I'd say Biden, but I don't even think Biden knows what's going on. I have a copy of an executive order somewhere on my desk here, and I can't find it. I'm reading it. It's way too complicated for the guy who couldn't put his jacket on yesterday to have written that thing.
No, you're right.
Yeah, there's no way. So, but all the people behind the scenes, you know, and he's so compromised. He's such an easy puppet.
Absolutely.
But all these guys. So when you look at Ghana, you look at Ecuador, you look at Sri Lanka. These guys they're totally good with people dying.
Yes, good point, Tom.
And it's gonna, and the same is going to be here in America. So,
that's right.
You know, the governor here in California, we know he's been wanting green policies for so long. The problem with these green policies, they are not just going to, they will destroy the California farmland, no doubt. It's going to have a major effect on global crops. But you look at the Midwest, you look at the rest of the farming in the country. I get emails, you get emails from people all over the country that are saying what they're doing to the farmers there. And they're shutting them down. We hear, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, think about this. If you tell the whole farming industry in the United States that you got to go to electric vehicles, how is that possible? Yeah, even here in California, they want all the people who do lawn services and everyone else to go to electric. Excuse me, how are they going to do that? Yeah. That's insane. You're going to put thousands of people out of work.
You can't.
You can't, but they know that. They're not dumb. Biden's dumb. He doesn't even know what's happening. But guys like Yuval Harari, they know exactly what needs to be done. Yuval Harari just recently came out and said that raising animals for food is the most cruelest things we've done in human history. And that's their mindset. So they're going to get rid of raising chickens or beef or whatever for food. I mean, that's a complete way of controlling us. And so they're looking for the destruction of the United States in order for us to be broken down so that we will come under global leadership. And I think, Tom, I think we're at the breaking point now that I just don't see a revival. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, there could be a revival. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't see that. And I don't see the church being revived. I maybe have pockets here and there, but I don't see America being revived because they've been pushing us around and no one pushes back. So they're having their way and they know they can get away with it.
They are. You know, I hope if we're here for a while, there will be a revival. If we're here. But I don't see it either. Biblically, the Bible doesn't tell us about any real great awakening except for one that takes place during the tribulation period.
Exactly.
Prior to that, it appears, what I see prior to that is a church that is given over to doctrines of demons, a church that's lukewarm, a church that has a form of godliness, a form of religion, but denying the truth, denying the power thereof. So that seems to be more the direction that I see things going. And it's gonna be,
you're right.
It's going to be interesting to see what develops out of this also. I do wonder if we're going to end up in a civil war because, you know, I think, okay, with this arrest that happened with Trump last night, thinking it through, it's going to inspire the masses of people that are on the right to say, no way are we going to put up with this. November's coming. Absolutely no way. This is really bad. So these people who make sure he gets arrested, they must know that. I mean, I can figure that out. So
I agree with you. I think one of the aspects they're trying to do is goad people into a civil war, because then they can declare martial law and really put out all the stops and put everything down. So I believe they want a civil war. And many people that watch society believe we already have a cold civil war going on right now. And I think one of the points that I was making on Sunday about this is, you know, when God puts together a nation, one of the aspects of a nation is you have to have community, you have to have shared values. We have a nation now that's completely split on its values. Whether or not, like an issue of abortion, we got people that believe babies are parasites and could be killed at any moment in time, even after they're born, versus the traditional values. How do you have a relationship with a fellow American citizen that believes that murdering babies is okay? Yeah. And it's on all these issues, transgender or whatever. You have a divided nation, and that's on purpose. That's part of the beast's tactic of divide and conquer, and we're fragmented. So they have set up a pre-Civil War mentality. And I've heard Dr. Victor Hanson and all these other guys who study history and watch how the Civil War happened before. We're in that mindset now. I'm not advocating one, but I'm sure, expecting possibly we could see this.
Yeah.
And if that goes that way, then that's it. That'll be the end for America.
It is. And I do believe that it seems to be the attempt is to get the people to enter into a civil war, bring in martial law or whatever is necessary. Do you remember several years ago that it was during Obama's administration? Let me see. I'm not sure if it was the FBI had listed all these different people as terrorists in America. Remember that? So it's resurfacing now. All News Pipeline pulled up the Michael Snyder article. He listed 72 different people that would be known as terrorists by the FBI. And he asked this in his original article from 2013. Are you a conservative, a libertarian, a Christian, or a gun owner? Are you opposed to abortion, globalism, communism, illegal immigration, the UN, or the New World Order? Do you believe in conspiracy theories? Do you believe that we are living in the end times, or do you ever visit alternative news websites? If you answer yes to any of these, you're a potential terrorist. And the list goes on. It's
There you go.
72. You know, you look at this. So this right now, you and I, probably almost everybody that's watching this program would fall into this category. So you can label anybody. I mean, just saying that last night was bad would probably make you a terrorist.
Absolutely. And what that they're doing is they're putting this down now to use it later. Because right now people would say, that's crazy. They're not going to do that. No, they're not doing it now. They're going to do it later.
No, they are.
That's the problem. And here's the funny thing about evil, and I can't figure this out. Maybe you know it, Tom. Evil always shows what it's going to do. It always tells you what they're going to do. So now that they've labeled us, we're the domestic terrorists, they're already telling you this is what our plans are. It's the weirdest thing.
It is.
But I know I see this thing all the time that evil always alerts you. It's almost like a prideful brashness that I'm going to do this and you're not going to be able to stop me.
I've wondered that myself, because when you go back to October of 2019, you had Event 201.
Right.
Saying, if there happens to be a particular virus, how should we respond? Right.
Right.
And
it's
it
weird.
just so happens that Klaus Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset and gave all these details.
Yeah.
You start looking at all of these different factors. I was talking with I think it was Billy Crone yesterday. You look at that woman who was riding that beast at the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah,
and you
right.
think, you get all this different imagery that keeps on coming out of Europe.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, it's like they're mocking or saying, yeah, we are going this direction.
Yeah.
But and they're telling us you're gonna have digital currency, and they put a spin on it as if it's gonna be great. But the reality of it is, they basically tell you, well, you're not really gonna be able to do anything unless your ESGs, which you're talking about earlier, all fall in line, or you're approved, which means you're totally submissive to the government. And now with this terror list here that has been here for a long time, it's going to come back.
Absolutely.
And they're going to use it. Hitler, any evil regime, you have to label your enemy. And then once they're labeled, they're branded, then you can turn everybody else against them. And that is happening. And they've got the whole media. They're driving the whole media.
Well, the dehumanization of people, that's the Hitler tactic, right? You say they're just not human. They're, label them a terrorist, or, they're subhuman. And therefore that actually gets people to be incited for violence against us. And so, here's the thing, and Christians may not like this, but the longer we're here, Tom, we could see persecution in other aspects, not only just, verbal persecution or soft persecution or legal persecution. You can actually start seeing people getting violent towards Christians if we're called domestic terrorists, we're hateful, we don't support the transgender, drag queen pastors or anything like that. And so we're the outcasts of society. And so people will actually start physically hurting Christians.
Totally. You see, already burning churches over Roe v. Wade. What's interesting about this? It's in the blue states where they're having the riots over like Roe v. Wade, where the blue states are going to continue with abortion and then even increase it. So you think it's because they know they're not going to get away with their violence in these other places, but they're doing it. We have a Department of Justice that won't press charges, won't seek hate crimes, won't do any of that. But it is definitely turning against Christians. I talked with Olivier Melnick last week, and I said, you know what, Olivier, I said, the best friend the Jews have is the evangelical Christian. Yeah. And I said, I'll guarantee you the enemy is going to have to get rid of the Christian before he's going to be able to do to the Jews what he wants to do to the Jews, which and we thought, could be the rapture is what takes place. Hey, I want to ask you this. We don't have a lot of time left. I want to go to questions, but you mentioned also in Daniel chapter 7, I believe when you were talking the other night about we have now become a banana republic. If you didn't mention it the other night, we definitely can see that in the last 18 hours.
Absolutely. Well, and note that what a banana republic does is it weaponizes its institutions against political opponents. Well, okay, that's the political definition of banana republic. We're there, but where does this go? Well, the banana republic then is wanting a uniparty. It doesn't want any opposition or. We've even heard Yuval Harari talk and say we need a global governance that will actually force the issues on countries. And so the whole idea of our political structure in America is bogus to them. They want to get rid of it. We know they want to get rid of the Constitution, but they don't want a so-called democratic or constitutional republic that has a voting aspect to it. They don't want that. They believe, back to Plato's Republic, that there should be a ruling class of elites that govern everything we do and that they're smarter than us. And so then Yuval Harari ends on this and he says, well, once we do all this and we go AI and automation and all this stuff, what are we going to do with all these useless humans? And he jokingly says, well, we'll just give them drugs and video games. But I know what other regimes have done with useless humans in their minds. They kill them.
They will eliminate them.
And it doesn't look pretty.
Oh, it doesn't. And when you look at Revelation chapter 13, the mark of the beast, if you're going to live, you're going to receive the mark of the beast. So it is. This is such a setup. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to see the direction this is going. If you read your Bible and you believe the Bible is true, it's really hard to not see what's happening. Really hard.
Yeah, you'd have to have your head in the sand. And this is the weird thing, that you think the churches will be all over this, but they're not. There's a handful of people like yourself, myself, Billy Crone, and, all these other guys that we know. But Tom, you go outside of our churches, outside of this remnant group that's trying to alert people, they're dead silent on this and they're completely ignorant. Oh, yeah. They cannot connect dots. And at a time where most of these things are lining up for prophecy and setting the stage, the church is basically silent on this. And I get called a nut, I'm crazy, I'm tinfoil hat. And I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you what the Bible says. That doesn't make me crazy. But there's so many more of the churches that are checked out, it makes you and I and anyone else look like they're crazy.
Yeah.
But I never thought I would see the church abandon prophecy like this and not equip the saints for it. So it's scary.
It's troubling. And then we remember the words of Peter in 2 Peter chapter 3, in the last days, scoffers will come, say, where's the promise of his coming? Our fathers used to say that. And that, I've always looked at that passage as churched people who are tired of hearing about Jesus coming again and scoffing. And we can really, man, do we really see it? I want to ask you another question in just a second. But first this, listen, send in your questions. We have a few more minutes with Brandon. Put the word question in all caps so I can see them. And then also, Brandon's going to be speaking this Friday and Saturday at the conference in Huntington Beach. You can go to hopeforourtimes.com or the Hope for Our Times app, and you can register for the live stream. It will be uncensored. So Brandon's going to be turned loose, along with all the other guests, to say everything. Yeah, yeah. We know what it's like to be censored. So this is I can't wait to have uncensored messages. They will not be on YouTube. They're not going to be uploaded later on YouTube unless somebody rips us off. But okay, so in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, do you believe the apostasy that is spoken of there is the catching up? Because there's two different schools of thought on that. Or do you think it is the church going apostate?
Good question. Okay, so the guy who came up with that obviously is Dr. Andy Woods, that you're going to have at your conference. And I love Andy. Him and I have talked about that. I'm not sold or convinced on his take on that it's referring to the rapture. I understand where he's coming from. I take the position that it's the falling away of the church. And the reason for my disagreement, I'll explain. And I love Andy. But when we use words like apostia, you have to, in my opinion, you have to use it in the time in which it was used and how it was used and the meanings that were poured into it at the time of the use. What some guys do is they go back in time and pull the word out from a period of time that's way before the time it was used in the scriptures and say, well, in that period of time, it was used for evaporation of medical. It was a medical term. I see it now that language changes, and by the time that Second Thessalonians is written, the usage of the word apostasy is being used for political defection. And so my concept is we need to use the word as it was used at the time of the writing, not something that was happening 200, 300 BC. And so in that period of time, the apostasy meant political defection, which would then fit into the interpretation that it must be a defection of the church from truth. So, but we can agree to disagree. And I love Andy, and he's a great guy.
I've gone back and forth on it. I believe this, the church going apostate, as you just said. Then I read Andy's book. It convinced me for a while that I think this might just be the rapture. But I'm going back to my original thinking. And the more I look at it, I'm thinking, I do believe this is speaking of the church and an apostate people who have departed. And it also, I look at the days we are in right now, and it appears to me we are definitely headed that direction. I mean, you mentioned how hard it is just to find somebody who's willing to think that Jesus might be coming back, and you should be ready. Amazing.
Yeah, and then you add in all the other warnings about the apostasy of the church, and contextually, it seems to be the most coherent view. And I understand there's disagreement, but to me, it's the most coherent overall, systematically.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I don't see all your questions coming in yet, so maybe they are. So make sure you put question in all cap, or maybe I missed them. There's like 8 million comments on here. I may have missed them, Brandon. I don't know. So while you guys are still sending in your questions, remember, put word question in all caps so I can see it easy. I'm watching. Here's one. Just came in from V357. Who is pushing the button on all these decisions for America? Certainly not Joe. Well, was that what you were talking about in your message Sunday night, Daniel 7?
I think, and I think, the funny thing is, one time Joe was asked about it, and he actually revealed that his bosses were the Council of Foreign Relations. And so he revealed that. I don't know if he slipped up, but he did say that. Well, the Council of Foreign Relations is a globalistic government, obviously. But I also know, too, that, these world leaders are all bowing a knee to the agenda of the World Economic Forum. And I don't know why they do this. I don't know what deal was cut. I just know that I'm looking at Germany, France, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and they're all following the World Economic Forum for some reason. And again, I don't know what deals were cut, but Klaus Schwab seems to be the main guy behind all of this. And I'm sure there's other global elites that are hidden, but you have the International Monetary Fund, you have the World Bank. They're all involved in this and taking their cues from this organization. So when you ask, we don't, but Joe Biden's not pushing the buttons, the globalists directly tied to the World Economic Forum are, because we're doing the agenda in America that the World Economic Forum wants us to keep and do. So that tells me who has the most power. Is whose agenda is being kept.
Yeah, I read some time ago that Henry Kissinger, along with a couple of the other guys of CIA and Council on Foreign Relations, there are 3 guys, Henry Kissinger, 2 others, you probably know who they are, met with Klaus Schwab and said, hey, you're it. And I think it was before the name became World Economic Forum. I think Klaus Schwab started with another name, and I think it was at that time, and they basically branded him and said, you're going to be the perfect guy that we need. And so, you look at all these different, who's involved in what. What's fascinating is in Revelation 17, towards the end of Revelation chapter 17, God says he puts it into the hearts of the 10 kings to give their kingdom to the beast, to all be of one mind.
That's right.
We are watching this. We know God is sovereign in all of this, and it is amazing. And there's so many different players involved. Like Billy was saying yesterday, we probably don't even know, which is what you're saying, all who's behind the scenes. Certain people who we see out front is who they want us to see out front.
Yeah, Klaus Schwab is the front man. There's no doubt about it. But behind him are some evil guys. And here's the funny thing. When you start studying some of these globalist guys that we do know of, the Rockefellers and the Soroses of the world and the Bill Gates and stuff like that, what you start finding out that there is a deep, deep satanic component to all of this. That many of these globalist guys, many of these global elites are tied into Satanism. I mean, direct Satanism. That's why a lot of these guys, one of the telltale signs is sexual immorality, but it's beyond just regular sexual immorality of adultery or fornication. It goes into pedophilia. So a lot of these global elites are into pedophilia, which is the most despicable thing imaginable, but it's extremely satanic. As part of satanical ritual abuse is to abuse children. So whoever all these globalists are, at the very, very top, they're worshiping Satan. I mean, think about what Hillary Clinton and Podesta were doing when they were doing spiritual cooking, which is a very satanic witchcraft. Oh my gosh, it's just disgusting. But these people are really into this stuff. It's evil, and they know it is. But, of course, they want to pretend that they're a good old Christian and Joe's just a good Christian or whatnot. But, man, when you look down deep, I mean, his son got caught on a text message or voicemail calling Joe Biden pedo.
Yeah.
Short for pedophiler.
Yeah. So,
what's that about?
Yeah, you look at Epstein's black book.
Yeah, right.
Gee, interesting that none of those people listed have ever been revealed.
For a reason.
Yeah, there is a reason, because all these people at the top are on that list. This person, Steven Swartz, wants to know if you and I, Tom and Brandon, have any plans to have a conference in Georgia. You know what? If God opens up the door, we will.
I'll go if someone invites me, man. So if you can find a church in Georgia that will do it, I'll go.
We're going to be in Mexico. If you guys want to join us in Mexico in 2023, we will be there. This person has a question. Panther Gal 73, wasn't the original Antichrist number 616?
Really? Never heard that one.
Okay, I have. I've seen it before. 616. Some Bibles have said that. I can't remember what the story is on it saying 616. I thought you might know what the story is on it. So there I asked.
I wish I did. But you know what? I will make this comment. A lot of people kind of go too far with the 666. It's actually not the term 666, it's 666. So a lot of people make the misnomer of saying whenever I see 3 6s, that's the sign of the beast or whatever. Really, it's a numerical value of the name of the beast. And the numerical value is 666 to be precise. So the numerical value has to add up in Hebrew to 666. So a lot of times people will do an over-realized eschatology and start saying that the number is 6 individual sixes, and it's not. It's 600 together, 666.
And people come up with all kinds of different predictions based on that. And I'm sure you get a lot of people who send you. They figured out who Antichrist is.
Everybody seems to know who the Antichrist is except me. I
don't know
they
either.
All tell me who the Antichrist is.
I haven't figured it out yet either. But people will tell. People do tell us. So
yes, they do.
Let's see. I keep losing questions on here. Man. Okay, give me a second here. Um, I thought, this is Patty. I thought the church, this needs to be the last question because we're going to keep you over. I thought the church was the bride of Christ, and therefore, how can the church fall away without losing their salvation? I think it's a great question.
Oh, that's simple. How can the church fall away without losing their salvation? It's simple, because if you understand salvation, salvation is based on the promise of Messiah and believe in that promise that he can give eternal life. But having salvation and eternal life is not the same as apostatizing. Why are there so many warnings in the scriptures, especially the book of Hebrews gives 5 warnings to believers about make sure you don't fall into apostasy like Kadesh Barnea did. And what you start realizing is that all the warnings, like Paul's saying, I hope I compete according to the race and I don't get disqualified. Now, what is Paul talking about? Paul's not talking about being disqualified for salvation. He's talking about losing rewards. And one of the aspects, unfortunately, the church has not been good at is distinguishing between rewards and salvation. So it is very possible for a believer to apostatize to whatever degree. And when they do, they lose rewards. Now, can they come back from the apostasy? Of course they can. But the time period that they're in the apostasy, or if they die in the apostasy, they will lose eternal rewards. And most of those rewards have to do with ruling and reigning in the Messianic kingdom. So there's not a contradiction. It actually makes perfect sense because of the freedom God gives us. And that's why there's a reward actually given us to those who stay unspotted and unblemished in our theology. That will receive a reward for having your theology straight and not apostatizing.
Yeah, I think John also mentions it a couple of different times. Be careful that you don't lose your reward. And he's speaking to a believer. I do believe also when you look at a passage where you have like 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, if you referring to it as the falling away, not the rapture, as Andy Woodson says. In that sense, I would say here's another problem. You have a fake church that I think is growing up inside of a real church. And
absolutely.
And the tares and the wheat. And so, in fact, Jesus even said, you won't be able to tell them apart. So it's not our job to eliminate them. So there are people and there are churches that can have an appearance of being genuine, but they're not. And I think that also is what's taking place.
Absolutely. And so that's where the believer has to maintain those categories. You have tares among the wheat, you have Laodicean believers, you have carnal believers, worldly believers, and it's possible for all of those categories to fall away. And so you're right. You have the tares who are faking it and they fall away. Of course, they're going to fall away. But you also have to maintain the other categories of believers that can also fall, not from salvation, but into apostasy. So you're absolutely right, Tom. There's that aspect as well.
Brandon, thank you very much. Okay, quick question. What are you speaking on this weekend?
I'm going to speak on Yuval Harari and how he is telling us all that they're planning to do to us. And then I will be speaking on the third horseman, which is basically the economic system. And I'm going to be talking about the setup of what they're doing right now, how it's setting up the third seal, where a quart of wheat for a day's wages, 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. How do we get there? And we're going to talk about what they're doing to the United States and countries around the world to destroy our economy.
It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. Looking very forward to it. Listen, everybody, if you haven't registered yet, you can register for the conference live stream. Download the app, Hope for Our Times. Go to hopeforourtimes.com. It's the only place it's going to be available. It's not going to be on YouTube or anywhere else, and everybody's going to be uncensored. And if you can't watch it live, you'll have it for a full 30 days, so you can watch it anytime in those 30 days that it works out for you. Brandon, I can't wait to see you. Only a couple of days away. And I'll be praying for your safe travels. And thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Betcha.
And listen, tomorrow Monkey is going to be joining me. Monkey will also be at the conference. His first time ever in California is going to be this week. So you better pray for him. So Monkey will be joining me tomorrow at 2 o'clock live. God bless you, everybody. Thank you, Brandon. See you shortly.
Take care.